what sort of karate training or martial arts training do you specialize in?
In Combat Hapkido, which is a derivation of the Hapkido martial arts style.
Okay, and you actually have developed a specialized version of Combat Hapkido. Tell me about that.
Correct. I developed a variation of the Combat Hapkido system by modifying certain techniques to apply for those who have disabilities. I need just about any kind of disability.
Tell me what your version concentrates on, where the traditional Hapkido may not concentrate as much on.
Well, most of the techniques are for application in close-quarter combat. Obviously, if you're disabled, generally, you know, in a wheelchair, in order for a person to attack you, they first have to come very close to you. So most of the techniques focus on close quarters by either being punched, kicked, grabbed, things like that, followed up with joint locks, wrist locks, submission holds, things like that.
You were telling me off camera that in your situation, it's not like using traditional martial arts to where the philosophy is do as much as possible so that you can flee, because obviously you really don't have a chance to flee.
Right. My philosophy is that if someone is going to attack me, my implementation of techniques is going to be a little bit more severe, a little bit more serious than, say, someone else might do. In a street situation, in a realistic street fight, if somebody attacks me, I am probably going to do a lot more damage because I feel I'm not going to have the opportunity to get a second chance. If this person either gets away from me or goes to get help, or, you know, he can come and do some serious damage afterwards. So I'm going to inflict a lot of damage.
Now, you said that you actually were involved in a couple of situations since your accident.
Right. The first year I was out of the hospital, I was attacked twice. Once at a payphone and once in a restaurant by a couple of individuals. And it actually caught me by surprise, and that's what got me thinking about putting together a formal program to teach the self-defense skills that I know to, you know, individuals with disabilities.
Tell me about the accident and how that changed you as a person.
Well, it turns your life upside down. I mean, 1 minute everything is fine, your life is normal as it is every day, you get up, you go to work and things like that, and then all of a sudden you wind up in the hospital and you're wondering, oh, well, what on earth happened? The period of time that follows any type of traumatic injury is probably the most critical, especially the first 3 months, 6 months, 9-month period, because that's when you have to adjust to things that are different, circumstances, to new physical situation that you may have as a result of the injury. So it becomes very challenging, to say the least.
You're actually in the position now to where you're helping people that have experienced the same sort of accidents, correct?
Right. It took me about a year or so to, so to speak, put my life back together. After that, I went back to the rehab center where I stayed, which was at Jackson Memorial. My attitude, everything had changed, and I realized that I had a skill or a talent, so to speak, to talk to people, to get them motivated, to get them hopefully out of any depressive cycle that they may be in. And that helped a lot. And then I started doing it on a regular basis for other rehab centers, for other patients, for other individuals, having realized my potential and what I actually can still do compared to what I can't do anymore.
You're faced with a person that says, this is it. I've been in this accident. I'm paralyzed from the waist down. My life is over. There's nothing good that can come out of this. And to that attitude, how do you respond?
I can relate to it, first of all, which makes a big difference to, say, someone who is just a counselor that doesn't really necessarily have the experience of having gone through the same thing. When I talk to somebody and they answer, I know exactly what they're talking about. I've felt most of what they felt. I've been through the same emotions. My answer to them is, it's time to wake up and see that there's still a life and there's still a world out there. And, you know, it's easy to say until you actually do it, because I remember back when I was in rehab, the first 6-month period, I didn't want to hear any of that. You know, my conclusion was, well, my life is over. I'll never do this again, never do that again. But fortunately, I had the support and the help from family, from friends, and from people all around the world who didn't even know me, in the martial arts community that had sent me letters and things like that, and I started to realize, you know, well, maybe so. And I started to look at things more as a challenge rather than an obstacle. It's a person's choice whether they want to sit back and feel depressed and sorry for themselves, or they're going to say, hey, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do it. There's a lot of things to experience, and there's a lot of things to do. Like, I've done jet skiing. I've raced jet skis against able-bodied people, and I've won. And that was unheard of. I mean, I was one of the first people to ever do that. And in fact, I had a problem even getting permission to be able to do that because people were afraid, you know, liability one thing or another. But I did it. I did diving. I continued with the martial arts. And little by little, I discovered there's a lot more things out there than what you immediately realize.
How is martial arts, is it effective when it comes to therapy and rehabilitation?
Absolutely. Martial arts is not only the techniques. Remember also there's a lot of philosophy behind it. And in order to execute the techniques, you have a lot of different exercises that you need to do. For example, your motor skills, your coordination, your hand-to-eye coordination, exercises to increase and improve your balance and your range and things like that. So yeah, I think it's very beneficial and very therapeutic in that sense because it involves movement. It involves doing something, not just sitting there doing nothing. Of course, you know, it involves repetition because in order to learn a technique, you have to repeat it over and over again, which is why when I was attacked, the technique that I used came to me instinctively rather than through, having to think about it. The person just lunged at me and I just automatically did what I needed to do. That's how you perfect and refine your skills, by doing it over and over again. As far as individuals with different types of disabilities, I've worked with, like I said, a number of different individuals who have been either paraplegic, whether it's high or low levels, quadriplegic, amputee, head trauma, stroke, paralysis, blindness even. There's really no limits to it. It all depends on what the individual and what the instructor wants to do.
Well, that does it for this edition of Be Aware. Thanks once again for joining us. And remember, if you have a question or comment about Be Aware, call our hotline at 954-532-6019. And until next time, be safe, everyone, and be aware.